Remember when they said we'd all have flying cars by the year 2000? Well, that particular future might be a little late. But something just happened that feels like it's straight out of a science fiction magazine. It's news that has the entire world of technology buzzing with excitement. And it has the skeptics and the critics scratching their heads in disbelief. This story begins not in Silicon Valley, but in a place called Zimbabwe. In a nation known for its stunning landscapes and vibrant culture, an inventor named Maxwell Chikumbutso has been quietly working on miracles. For years, he claimed to have built something the world said was impossible. He said he built a car that doesn't need gasoline. It doesn't need a diesel engine either. It isn't a hybrid that uses a little bit of gas and a little bit of battery power. And most astonishingly, it isn't even a standard electric car. You see, a standard electric car, like a Tesla, needs to be plugged in to recharge its massive battery pack. Maxwell's car, he claimed, never, ever needs to be plugged in. He said his invention draws power right out of the air around us. It runs on radio frequency waves, the same invisible energy that carries music to your radio and pictures to your television. For a long, long time, people called it a hoax. They said he was a fraud. They said he was breaking the laws of physics. How could a car possibly generate that much power from thin air? Where is the energy coming from? It seemed too good to be true. But Maxwell kept working. He kept demonstrating his vehicles for anyone who would watch. He drove them in front of cameras. He showed the engines, which he also claimed to have invented from scratch. The skeptics just got louder. They said there must be a hidden battery somewhere. They said it was a clever magic trick, an illusion designed to fool investors. It seemed like this brilliant inventor from Africa would never get a fair hearing from the so-called experts. Well, my friends, a very important person was watching. And he is not a man who is afraid of impossible ideas. In fact, he seems to be drawn to them. His name is Elon Musk. You know him as the man behind the electric car company, Tesla. You also know him as the founder of SpaceX, the company that launches rockets to the stars. He is a man who dreams about colonizing Mars and connecting our brains to computers. He is not a man who is easily impressed. But he was impressed by Maxwell Chikumbutso. In a move that has shocked the world, Elon Musk has purchased Maxwell's revolutionary technology. He didn't just buy the car as a curious museum piece. He bought the patents. He bought the intellectual property. He bought the entire groundbreaking invention, lock, stock, and barrel. This isn't a rumor. This isn't a speculative news story from a fringe website. This has been confirmed by representatives for both men. The deal is done. The papers are signed. Elon Musk now owns a car that runs on radio waves. Let that sink in for a moment. The world's most famous champion of electric vehicles, a man who has staked his entire fortune on battery technology, has just bought a car that makes his own batteries seem outdated. Why would he do such a thing? It's a question everyone is asking. Perhaps he sees the future, and the future is not in heavy, expensive, mineral-intensive batteries. Perhaps he sees a technology that can truly change the world for the better, instantly. Just think about what this could mean for all of us. Imagine never having to stop at a gas station again. The price of fuel would no longer be a worry that keeps you up at night. Imagine never having to plug your car into an outlet for hours, waiting for it to recharge. You would just get in and drive, for as long as you wanted, for as far as you wanted. The freedom would be absolutely incredible. Now, think bigger than just your own car. Think about our towns and cities. The air would be cleaner and fresher without the exhaust fumes from millions of gasoline engines. The noise from traffic would be greatly reduced, bringing back a sense of peace and quiet to our neighborhoods. This technology could bring cheap, abundant power to remote villages that have never had reliable electricity. It could transform the developing world almost overnight. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? A beautiful, hopeful dream. But as with any story this big, there is another side. There are still many, many people who refuse to believe it. The critics and the haters have not simply admitted they were wrong and gone home. Oh no. They have found new reasons to doubt. They have found new ways to criticize. And today we are going to listen to what they have to say. We are going to give them a fair hearing. Then, we are going to look at the facts and decide for ourselves. So, what are the haters saying now? Well, their first argument is the oldest one in the book. They are still saying it's impossible. They claim it violates the fundamental law of conservation of energy. This is a basic law of physics we all learned in school. It simply states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only converted from one form to another. The critics say that Maxwell's generator is claiming to create energy from nothing, which would break this sacred law. They say it's a perpetual motion machine, a fantasy that scientists have debunked for centuries. But here is the crucial point that often gets missed. Maxwell Chikumbutso does not claim to be creating energy from nothing. He says he is harvesting it. He says he is tapping into the vast, unseen ocean of electromagnetic energy that is already all around us. Think of it like a solar panel. A solar panel doesn't create sunlight, it simply captures the solar energy that is already flooding down on us. Maxwell's device, in theory, is like a radio wave solar panel. It captures the RF energy that is constantly being broadcast by radio towers, television stations, cell phone networks, and even satellites. The critics then say, but there isn't enough power in those waves to run a car. And for a long time, that was considered a solid argument. But technology advances. What was impossible yesterday becomes possible today with a new material, a new circuit design, a new understanding. Perhaps Maxwell discovered a new, incredibly efficient way to gather and concentrate that diffuse ambient energy. We've seen this story before, throughout history. When the Wright brothers said they could fly, the leading scientists of the day said it was impossible for a heavier-than-air machine. They were wrong. When scientists said breaking the atom was a fantasy, they were eventually proven wrong. The list goes on and on. The word impossible has a terrible track record when faced with human ingenuity. The second thing the haters are saying is that this is all an elaborate stock market trick. They claim that Elon Musk is a master of publicity. They say he bought this technology not because it works, but to create a media frenzy. They suggest it's a distraction from other problems in his companies, or a way to boost his stock price with a sensational announcement. This argument, frankly, doesn't hold much water when you really think about it. Elon Musk is one of the richest and most successful businessmen on the planet. His reputation is his most valuable asset. Would he really risk his entire legacy, his credibility as a serious innovator, on a publicly known fraud? Would he attach his name to a hoax, knowing that the entire world would be watching and waiting for him to fail? It seems highly, highly unlikely. A man like Musk has teams of the world's best engineers and physicists. You can bet your bottom dollar that before he wrote that check, his people took that car apart down to the very last bolt. They tested every component, every wire, every microchip. They would have subjected it to the most rigorous, independent verification process imaginable. For Musk to make this move, he must be utterly convinced that the technology is genuine and that it works as advertised. The third criticism from the skeptics is a bit more nuanced. They say, okay, maybe it works in a demonstration in Zimbabwe. But can it be scaled? Can it be made safe, reliable, and affordable for millions of people? This is a fair question. Many wonderful inventions never make it out of the laboratory. The transition from a working prototype to a mass-produced consumer product is incredibly difficult. There are huge challenges to overcome. How does the car perform in the freezing cold of a Minnesota winter? How does it handle the blistering heat of an Arizona summer? What happens when you drive it from a city full of radio waves into a remote desert with very few signals? These are all practical, engineering problems that would need to be solved. But here's the thing, if anyone has the resources and the talent to solve these problems, it is Elon Musk. He took electric cars from a niche product for environmentalists to a mainstream desire. He created a reusable rocket, something NASA said was too difficult to do. If there is a man on Earth who can take a revolutionary prototype and turn it into a reliable product for your driveway, it is him. The final thing the critics are mumbling about is safety. They worry about the health effects of sitting inside a car that is actively sucking powerful radio waves out of the air. They remember old concerns about cell phones and cancer. This is a very understandable worry, especially for our generation that has seen technology advance so rapidly. We have a right to be cautious about new things. We need to be sure that our health and the health of our grandchildren is protected. This is a question that will require extensive, long-term, independent scientific study. We must demand that testing is done and the results are made public for everyone to see. If this technology is to become part of our lives, it must be proven to be safe beyond any shadow of a doubt. So, where does all of this leave us? We have an inventor from Africa who has struggled for years against a tide of disbelief. We have a billionaire visionary who has bet a part of his fortune on that inventor's dream. We have a chorus of critics who are armed with arguments from physics and skepticism. And we have the potential for a world-changing breakthrough that could make our lives better in so many ways. It's a fascinating moment in history, and we are all here to witness it. When you look at the big picture, the purchase by Elon Musk is the single greatest vote of confidence this technology could have ever received. It is the moment the idea moved from the fringes to the very center of the global stage. The haters have had their say for years. They had their chance to prove it was a fake, and they failed to stop its progress. Now, the burden of proof has shifted. The world is no longer asking Maxwell Chikumbutso to prove his invention works. The world is now waiting for Elon Musk to show us how it works, and how he will bring it to all of us. This feels very familiar to those of us who have seen decades of change. It feels like the early days of the personal computer, when people said no one would want a machine in their home. It feels like the early days of the internet, when people said it was just a passing fad for universities. It feels like the early days of the mobile phone, when people said they would never give up their landlines. We have seen this pattern of skepticism and breakthrough again and again throughout our lives. This has the same feeling. It feels like the beginning of something new. It feels like the dawn of a new chapter in human innovation. So, to all the haters and the critics, what do you say now? Your strongest arguments have been challenged not by words, but by a simple, powerful action. A man who has repeatedly achieved the impossible has put his money and his reputation on the line.